Okay, so it's Saturday, so I'm just trying to roll out and knock out a few different videos. Coffee cup number 2, and Noe's messing with my creamer. She's got this non-flavored creamer because we have flavored coffee cups, and then she puts the non-flavored creamer, and it's like, I gotta have a little bit more extra sweetness, because and I don't drink, like, I don't put sugar in my coffee. You guys don't really care. You don't. Anyhow, getting to this Ask HershNoeie question, make sure that you join the Discord. It's going to be down in the description box below. I have someone who asked a question. And Hersh, I got some questions. Hope I'm not asking too many. You can never ask too many questions, by the way. In one of your past videos, I heard you mention you had some investments in real estate, but you got rid of them because they were giving you trouble, I think. Excuse me. Could you talk about your real estate investments in more detail? What you had invested in, renting single-family homes, commercial space, etc. Why did you get rid of them? What are the issues? I don't know if that's two separate questions or not. Maybe even give people advice on real estate investing in Washington as opposed to just purchasing a home for yourself. Let me see the other one. Let me read the other one real quick. Okay, I think the second question is a separate video, I think. So let me handle the first bit. It's from the same person, but it's in our Discord. Yes, so I did have some real estate. None in Washington. Washington is way too, at least for me, way too expensive for me to have real estate here. However, that could be changing in the future. So I'll talk about that a little bit more here in a second. But I did have some real estate properties. They were, it was single family homes, but no commercial space, no industrial space. I wish I had commercial space. And so that's kind of hopefully a future goal here, but nothing on the scale of what you're thinking. Right? When it comes to residential homes, man, it's just, bruh. I mean, there's some people, I remember a real estate guy told me in Indiana, he said, look, you don't want to get into, he was a broker, and he has some, a few homes that he has for rent. He's like, you don't want to get into this. And I'm like, well, why? And he's like, yeah, you just don't want to. And he was talking about different stuff. And I said, but why are you doing it then? He's like, because I'm in the industry. And I'm like, so, yeah, one of the big issues, if you could have real estate, to answer your last question, if you can have a few properties here in Washington, this side of Washington, or wherever in Washington even, honestly, and you can technically rent those out, then go for it. If that's what you want to do, definitely do it. You're going to get money for sure, a lot of money. And there's a huge demand, especially on this side of the state, huge demand. So you'll always have a tenant when it comes to residential space. Commercial space, different story. Office space, different story. Industrial space, a little bit of a different story. Those are a little bit more complicated, but the rewards are much bigger. Just is, right? Here's the reason why I don't want to get into investments where I have to rely on people filling them so much in the future, right? Unless it's commercial. Is because you have to do, one of the big things, and I got out at the right time, because when things like the sickness happen, a lot of cities and states put in laws to protect tenants, right? Makes sense, because if they lose their job, they can't afford to pay their rent. And so they have these rent moratoriums that basically block a a landlord from evicting them. So even if a person didn't pay before, see, here's the problem. There's a few. Okay, I can go on this topic all day long. If someone doesn't pay, let's say that they didn't pay in August of 2019, so before the sickness that we know of. Let's say that they didn't pay in August of 2019. It's not like after 30 days you can just kick them out. You can't do that. Even if they stayed there for 6 months, you can't kick them out. And they never paid a dime. You cannot kick them out. A court has to kick them out. So you have to take them to court, and you have to go bring everything that you have, go to court, and pay all that expense just to get them kicked out. But that doesn't mean that they're going to pay what they owe. That just means that the court has said you have to vacate the premises. Okay? Because it's illegal for you to just, in most places, now I don't know, I can just tell you the places I've been, it's illegal for you to just kick someone out, right? You then have to follow, so there's separate things. There is the, like when it comes to credit, like, credit bureaus and things like that. You have third-party debt collectors, and then you have creditor debt collectors. You're considered to be a creditor debt collector, meaning that you're the first line, and you have to follow state laws. So if someone is late, you basically can, if your state allows it, you can add fees, right? There's going to be a percentage of what you can add. In some cases, you can't add too much. You have to follow a certain protocol. You have to send them notice. You have to do a bunch of crap, right? You have to have all of your ducks in a row and make sure everything is itemized down to a T, because they don't necessarily have to bring much. The onus is a lot on you. Okay? It's a lot on you. And the reason why is because I think the court system and the laws are set up for these big, giant companies that own apartment buildings, not necessarily for the smaller folks that own a few properties here and there. It's mainly for those guys that have tons of money that they can hire accountants and attorneys and different things like that. So you have to get all that straight. And you have to have all your receipts, all of your stuff in a row. Okay? So then you also have to pay to be a part of the credit bureaus. So Equifax, Experian, TransUnion, you have to pay them to be a member so that you can report people who don't pay, who are delinquent. Okay? So then let's say you put them on the credit bureau. Let's say that they're $3,000 late. You try that route. And then they still don't pay. So you then sell it, hopefully, hoping that you can get something, to a third-party debt collector. Because a third-party debt collector will then buy that debt. They have to follow the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act. I have to follow the Fair Credit Billing Act. It's complicated. So you have to follow not only local and state laws, but federal laws. So it becomes very complicated. It can be if you have a problem person that really pushes it and they know a little bit of stuff and they know enough. It could be a long process. Now, we haven't gotten into them doing damages or anything like that. We're just at the very early stages. So then you sell it to a third-party debt collector, hoping that you're going to get something. And that $3,000, you might get, the debt collector might buy that from you. It depends. They may buy the debt from you, or they say, we'll see how much we can get total, and we take a percentage. So you're still not going to get your full $3,000. Now, if you have a loan on your properties, you still got to pay your loans. So even if you have to pay, whatever amount it is on that particular house that tenant's in, and they didn't pay their full amount, and let's say they're months and months behind, but you only get like 60% of what they owe, you still got to pay 100% to your bank, right? So I've listed so many problems as to why I'm not a fan. No more, I'm done, of renting out homes. So that's part of it. That's a big chunk of it. And then you have folks who are late. When folks are late, you'll hear every excuse in the jungle. Things that are very creative. Sometimes they'll put it on repeat. Why they can't pay. So then late fees will come in. Well, then they want to pay the late fee next time, or they try to forget that they have a late fee, and then they just pay you for the next month the regular rent. And late fees can also, they're subject, again, late fees, it depends on what your state and sometimes your city allows as far as late fees. You can't charge certain things. Some places you may not can charge late fees at all, right? And so then you have to deal with bounce checks or failed payments or whatever the case may be. So you're thinking you're good because I got a check in the box. You go take it to the bank, you smile and walk away. A few days later, bounced. Guess what? You can charge a fee for a bounced check. But it depends on what your local folks tell you can do. And so now, not only do you have a bounced check, you have no rent. That person's still hanging out there and you can't kick them out. Then let's say the sickness comes along. Now you have not only the city saying, hey, you have certain rules that we have, you got the state saying, nope. Mm-mm. It depends on the state. Washington state? No. If you are a business owner in Washington state, they will bleed you dry before they will allow you to mistreat someone else, period. What they consider mistreat someone else. You can't, right? You just can't. And I'm not saying just kick people out and not have a heart, but there sometimes people who are owning properties, you're left out to dry. Now, yes, are there certain things you can do? Sure. You can go to the bank and beg them for forgiveness and see if they are willing to do it. But sometimes the state or feds or whoever don't really work out the same agreement for businesses as they do people. You see what I'm saying? They don't do that. They may allow you to delay payment and say, okay, you can, you know what, let's say you have 10 properties, and let's say that over those 10 properties, you have $1 million invested, and you have a loan out for, I don't know, $500,000. And they're like, you can't pay any of those because, some of your folks aren't able to pay, or they're paying a little bit or whatever. So what you're paying is really just not even covering interest, but you're paying whatever you can get. They may say, look, you don't have to worry about that. Don't even pay. Don't even worry about it. We'll give you 3-4 months, and then on the 4th month, start paying again. But what happens is that you're paying, they didn't tell you that you don't have to pay those prior 4 months. You still got to come up with all that money for those 4 months. And you have to come up with all that interest over those 4 months. And you have to pay that current month that's right there due at that point in time. That's the case. And if you can't, then okay, we'll set you up on payment plans, but you're still paying a big old chunk with hefty interest that goes forward. There's a possibility that they can sit there and affect your credit. Yes, businesses do have credit. They go through Dun & Bradstreet. And so the personal folks have TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian, and there's another one that is not as big. But Dun & Bradstreet deals with businesses. So you could have a negative mark on your business credit. That affects a lot of things. If you want an investment on something else, now you can't, not because of something you did, but because of other people or because of the circumstances. So to answer your question, let me get into damages, because that's a big one. You will have people who will damage your property. Maybe in the beginning they are good, But they may have a dog that they're not supposed to have. You can't go in and check people's stuff without letting them know. You got to give notice, but they can easily see. The thing is that you have to be fair and equitable to people, but they don't have to be that way back. So I had a tenant that basically it's listed no pets. Okay, if you have pets, you gotta let us know, or it's violation of your lease agreement, and we can technically kick you out. But I gotta take you to court to do that anyway. See what I'm saying? Like, even though it says it in the contract, it's grounds for me to kick you out. But I can't just say, well, you messed up. You gotta go. And I gotta take you to court. So then the question is it really worth it? Because, like, judge is going to sit there and probably say, well, it's in your paperwork. Just make them pay it. Hit their little gavel and you got to walk out. Well, guess what? I got a big old court fine that I got to pay. I got to pay the court just for him to say, well, make them pay, a penalty for having pets in there. It's in your lease agreement. You see what I'm saying? So then let's say that you go in there and you do a walk around and you look and you see that there's like some cat pee or dog. There was a dog that clawed through one of my doors. And I remember Noelle saying, hey, do you have pets here? No. Oh, well, because then she's like, but this looks like dog claw marks. Like they clawed through the door. Oh, well, there is a dog that we watch every now and again for, a relative. It's just a little dog, but these are some big old claw marks. Like, little Quincy is a little dog. That little dog can't scratch through the door. You can leave that dog out there all year and him scratching for a whole year. He ain't going to make a hole that big, that gruff. This was a dog. And they're saying, no, there's not one there. But keep in mind, we have to let them know. I forget what it was. 48 hours prior, 24, I forget what it was. They knew that we were coming. So, of course, you can get a dog out of the house quick. You can't fix the repairs, though, quick. You can vacuum and spray to get the dog stank down, but you can't fix the issue, and that's what happened. So now it's basically their word against ours. We don't have any proof other than a scratched door. And if you take it to court, probably if they get a good attorney or if the judge really is playing hardball, I'm getting a call here. So hopefully Noelle will get it. Okay, it's for a studio. So if a judge is playing hardball, they're going to say, how do you know that what they're telling you is not true? Yeah, they have to fix the damages, but how do you know what they're telling you is not true? So not only will the judge possibly not kick them out, they have to fix the damages, supposedly. But now you have a tenant that's pissed because you took them to court over their dog. So there's nothing for them to say, I'm not going to just, I'm going to knock holes in the wall as soon as I leave. I'm going to scratch up the floor. I'm going to do whatever I want to do. And that's what happens. You have people who, on their last day out, tear up everything. Or you have people who maybe aren't mean, but they just live rough. And so you got that. You have people who leave their junk behind, tons of crap. And you got to pay to haul that off. So some people think that deposit covers that. Sometimes the deposit don't do much. Don't go far enough. And so that's why. To answer your question, I list a whole bunch of, I can, if you were here, I could crack a beer with you and I could tell you a lot more. But that's why. So no, I personally, real estate investment can be very lucrative for sure. It could be really, really a good thing. At this age, no thank you. I'm good. I'm good with that. Now, commercial real estate's a different story because then, even though a business can stiff you, they can just walk out, especially if they're the right type of, if they are registered a certain way, they can pretty much kind of just be like, well, and it doesn't affect them too much. So that can also be a problem too, but it's less likely. It's less likely. You don't have as much issues. You do have issues, don't get me wrong, but it's a little better when you're dealing with commercial stuff. It's a little better than not. Yeah, you do have an issue with contractors and stuff like that if they're, some of them don't do what they claim they're going to do, or they half do stuff or whatever. And you have that type of stuff. You have some people who are business owners who can be very difficult to deal with in general, and they're expecting this and that, and you don't know if they have good high-powered attorneys that will pick apart everything and say, well, you didn't do this, you didn't do that. So there's those nightmare issues, right? But commercial, I can see that. Single family homes or apartments, no thank you. Not for me. Now, there are some people who are financially positioned well enough where they have millions and millions, not just a million, but they have millions and millions, and they can sit there and it's like, I had 3 or 4 tenants that didn't pay, and overall it's $10,000. We'll just send it to collections, do the whatever. But they own the whole buildings and stuff. Like, they own the stuff. It's a big deal, but it's like, man, I'm not really missing out on any money. Like, I'm missing it, but whatever. That's different. But when you leveraging things and you have loans on things and stuff like that, that's a different story. Because then you're putting a lot on the line. You know what I'm saying? So anyhow, hope I answered your question. I'm going to get to your other question too. Make sure you join the Discord. It's going to be down in the description box below. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, I will see you. Take care.